Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Factorio Bob's Angels, episode 10. Welcome back to the factory. So, the project for this episode is to finish off the work getting Blue Science up and running. So, that means some level 2 assembler production, which is what we start working on first. Now, this is the first time I've ever done Science Revolution. Vive la Revolution! This is hopefully the proposed method for doing science packs as of update 0.15. This is the mod for it, based on the information that's already been provided so far in the Friday facts. So we start laying that out. Now, I think I looked at it while I was recording, but I've already forgotten. But each assembler needs a huge amount of iron cogs to function continuously. But there needs to be 12 assemblers. Sorry, what am I going on about? There needs to be 12 level 2 assemblers being produced per every 12 seconds. So it's that one every second. And these things can produce them at full speed of in half a second. They can produce 2 every second. So I've laid this out just as a basic way to produce them. A, there's not enough throughput for the assemblers to work continuously. And B, I don't think there's even enough assemblers to feed all the science pack assemblers. But we get something laid out at the start that'll just work. And I've left a bit of spacing in to work on it again in the future. But it's genuinely going to fit in an alley of that width. We start laying out the area for the next level of circuit boards, which we've done all the preliminary productions for, I believe, apart from things like the actual boards from the phenolic boards and the transistors. I produce those up here mainly just for these. In my last personal playthrough, the transistors that feed this became the main transistor production for the bus, but because they use so much, I may do it differently on this. I haven't decided, but we start laying out the electronic assemblers for these. Now these assemblers can't actually produce most of the products apart from the transistors and basic electronic components, but we lay it out for spacing anyway, and we're going to produce a few in a couple of temporary assemblers to build the level of electronic assemblers that can actually produce it. After laying that out, we head up north to get the ferric chloride solution being produced. Now, I could bust this and produce it down where it should be produced on the Bob's production sub-bus thing, but for some reason I like producing it randomly up here where there's not going to be much stuff once all this is mined out and temporary base is removed. I don't know why. I guess it's just to avoid busing it in any kind of way, either with barrels or pipes. I don't like having pipes on the bus. And there are pipes on the bus at the moment, but they're all temporary. And this needs iron ore for the ferric chloride, so it's nice and near the ore sorting area, even though I'm going to get it botted over. So I realised there's a base right by us as we're setting this up, so I'll go and clear that out. And I also leave the turrets in place just to prevent any more bases from forming there. So the first stage is some saltwater electrolysis. We get that set up. Get the placing bit off to begin with. I don't really like how I've done it, so I place it another way. And it's done just so that we can actually fuel it off here for coal as well, which is, again, temporary due to the slow rate that this will... No, actually, yeah, we're not going to need coal here in the future once it's being done by an electronic multi-purpose furnace, I think, is the one we'll need to get that done electronically. I don't think there's a unique red electronic structure in between. I think it's the multi-purpose. And then the next stage is to combine those two ingredients. I think the ratios here are correct. Hopefully someone will tell me if they're not. But, you know, the amount this will produce and the amount we'll need is very different. You know, we're going to need a lot less than this is going to be capable of producing. But we can use this for all of the boards production. All the circuit boards, because I think each stage from now on needs ferric chloride solution. I want to say ferret, thanks to the watching the Master Series. If you haven't seen the Master Series, it's probably one of the best multiplayer series of Factorio I've seen so far. Pretty much got all my favourite Factorio YouTubers in it. So yeah, we set up a chest for the iron ore because it's not going to be long before we get bots. And I don't really want a belt of iron ore running over here. I just want just enough here for it to function. Don't want it all set on that belt because it won't use it at a very quick rate, so I don't think it justifies belting it in. So we have that produced, and we lay out a couple of quick assemblers to produce some stuff. To produce the materials to make some of the circuit boards to produce the level of electronic assembler that we need, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's kind of a bit fiddly the way they've done it, making you have to have these circuits to produce the assemblers to be able to produce them in return. But part of me likes it, you know, quite enjoy it. And it kind of makes sense as well, I guess. So we've got all that laid out. And yeah, we produced some transistors. I'm starting to think they're not called transistors now, and they're actually called advanced electronic components. But yeah, I didn't look at it. And I just know them by the symbol again. It's one of those visual things you remember. And because I'm the second me, not the person playing it, I can't just go and check. And even if he does check, the video's going too fast for me to look at it, and I can't be asked to go back and pause. I do apologise. I do quite like doing these in one take, but they do still require quite a bit of editing. So we start laying out the belts while we're waiting for them to produce, although I can see that we haven't actually started. Although, no, there we go. We've just created the electronic assemblers for them. We'd already done the circuits prior while I was just blabbing on. And we start placing out the electric poles for the logic boards. I think that's boards, yeah. Got to apologise again for my inability to remember the names of anything. Yeah, they are called transistors, so I do look, and I leave it up long enough for me to be able to read it at this speed without having to pause it, which is very kind of me. Thank you, me. So yeah, we get some trees cleared with the extra nanobots we got on us. We've actually got quite a few now. I look at it. I didn't realise we had that many. But these oil pipes here, these aren't going to be here forever. I'm going to get rid of those. I want to be able to drive up and down the bus without a worry in the world. What is that saying, actually? Without a quarrel in sight? I don't know. Right. We place out the underground belts and we run out. I'm pretty sure I spent a bit of time in between episodes crafting a lot of stuff, but it's never enough. And until we have the proper production area set up for belts and stuff, and bots to deliver them, this is going to be a reoccurring problem. And I believe it reoccurs a few times in this episode. So we head down and start to bring the resources we need along. I'm not the best person at keeping the bus up to date, because I like to just belt in what we need it when we need it, to save belting in something that we actually need. It'll be quite obvious further on in the game what we do and don't need down the bus. And again, from my old playthroughs, I don't know off the top of my head. So we just leave the capacity to have anything down the bus that we need. So we start placing, or continue to, we've already started, place out the underground belts. And we bring the tinned copper wire in. Now, I've always questioned putting this on the bus, because it's like busing copper wire, which I'm probably still going to do in the future. But the thing with belting things like iron cogs is it takes 2 iron plates for 1 cog, so you're essentially doubling the throughput of busing them, which I've always thought is a good argument for putting cogs on the bus, which I'm going to do, but just for convenience sake. It's essentially going to take the 2 lanes in between the 4 iron and the 4 copper. One will be cogs and one will be wire, just for a laugh, you know, why not? But the lane that'll feed those won't be from the 4 iron or copper. The iron or copper will run up on that lane for the cog or wire up to that point, and then it will take its place. If that makes any sense whatsoever. So we have the transistor production up and running. We continue to make sure the spacing's all correct. And I realise that we are an input short for the final layer of production. And luckily there's just enough space for one belt to fit in, but sadly that's the belt that was going to be in reserve for the level 2 assembler production for science. So I'm going to have to work out in between episodes how I'm going to shoehorn that in, because I want to be able to have the ability to beacon any kind of production, whether it's actually needed or not. And this is one of the great things about Bob's adjustable inserters, and in fact probably one of the reasons why they had to put it in, was to be able to feed these smaller assemblers with enough resource. You need to put inserters in weird places. I don't know if this is the best way of laying all this out, but I kind of like it. Those inserters that are working on a 90-degree angle work a lot faster than a straight one, I believe, because they have less distance to move. And I like placing them out like that. It's, I don't know, kind of satisfying. For some reason, I do not know. And I don't realise it for a while, and it becomes a bit tedious, but I actually place these underground belts one space too high, and I keep getting confused at the point where, and I'm loading it, because everything should be in line and laid out nicely so that as you're adding stuff in, everything fits. And I keep noticing things don't fit properly when I line it up, and I don't realise for a while what I've actually done. I just want to get the resources up and running. This is the most time-consuming bit, getting all the right resources fed in the right places. I also noticed the plastic gets caught in it as well. That should be in a different place. And I'm thinking maybe the plastic's actually not in the right place for the whole thing anyway, but that'll be something I'll fix at a later date, because it doesn't really matter right now. It's just spacing of stuff, which at the end of the day, so long as everything functions correctly, is completely an aesthetical thing. And I like making the electronic components on site here because they are produced very quickly, and again, it's a belt throughput issue, I believe. If you have a centralized production bust, I like producing these on site because they only need two materials to produce, so it makes sense to me to make those on site. I mean, if I could space it in, I'd probably produce the transistors on the other side and get those fed in. And I'm not sure if I've actually tried doing that or whether it's even possible. I think it should be possible. The inserters will be able to reach far enough. It's just a question of being able to fit in beacons. But then you ask yourself, does it really need to have beacons? I don't know. Because you can't put productivity modules in beacons, only speed modules, and I think productivity is one of the most important ones for me. Speed are less important, but they're nice to counteract the productivity modules, so maybe it will work. Don't know. So we get the materials in place for that production. We'll do this again further down the line when we need them again. It just completely removes a throughput issue for that particular item. I use that wording because I'm not 100% sure I've got the names correct. But you know what I mean. You can see it being produced, so it doesn't really matter, so long as we're all on the same page. So this is the centralized production for this type of circuit, and it's being produced for the science. Now, I was saying earlier I don't really need blue science yet. I could probably go on for quite a while without it, but I have the necessary research to produce it, and I like producing it right next to red and green without having to move everything around or guess what the spacing is going to need to be for it, because it is pretty big. But this will probably be the last of the research packs that are produced via belts, or maybe I will do the other ones by belts and have the bots bring the science packs over. I don't know. We've got plenty of space to fit in the requested chests for it, so as long as it makes sense to do and it's not an excessive use of bots, then I'll probably do it. Now, I've already spaced out the labs for a second belt, but really they should be spaced out for 3 belts, as we have a whole nother belt's worth of science packs to come in. I think blue science will be alright taking up both sides of the belt. The last kind can take up, can be side loaded. I don't really like side loading, but I'll do it where I have to, or where it makes sense to not have to do 2 belts of whatever product, as long as side loading isn't causing a throughput, because you're essentially halving your level of throughput. And you can see I've side-loaded the circuits here for the assembler production, which I haven't worked out if that's going to be an issue. Hopefully it's not, because it's nice and space efficient. So I get another iron gear wheel assembler working there for the level 2 assembler. It's still not enough, but we're now at the capacity of a yellow belt, which is enough for me right now. I don't want to be churning out too much or using too much of our resources. We need more of a solid factory, to be honest. So yeah, it's another argument against doing blue science this early. I've still got a lot of red and green science to do, but we have a look at seeing if there's anything blue worth doing yet. I think I decide not to do any research yet due to our lack of resource. So we're almost through the entire episode, and I can't work out what I want to do next because I don't want to start something I can't finish. And then I can see that the inserters are working slowly and we're low on power. I don't know how long the power's been low, but this is the point we notice it. And I assume it's due to lack of boilers and steam engines, but I then learn the real extent of the issue. We placed some level 2 oil derricks just to add to the problem. But yeah, we have no coal left, or very, very little. Such a small amount that it's essentially nothing. So yeah, I'm a bit panicky at this point. I realise we have a massive problem on our hands. But luckily we have 2 coal patches nice and close to the rails. So that is absolutely #1 priority for next episode, is getting coal sorted. And we have finally gone through the last of the sapphirite. So we get that cleaned up, get the last of the sapphirite through to the crushing. And that's agenda #2, is sorting out a replacement income for iron, like a proper one. We've got the Javolite, but is it enough? And while I'm contemplating these things, we also have a very successful biter attack. They managed to shut off the power to the entire factory. But to be honest, considering how low production is already, it's not really making much of a difference. Same with the issue of the lack of coal. So yeah, next episode agenda is pretty clear. Coal. We need coal being brought in, which means simultaneously the rail system needs sorting out, because it's time we built what we're finally going to use for it. So we have to get this track laid out. And then the problem with doing that is all the biters to the southwest are in the way, because I want to bring the track well away from the smelting area so that can be expanded nicely, and away from the Bob's sub-bus. But we get a nice long shot of the map here, just have a look around at what's required. So I can either shoehorn the coal in now and have some sort of passing place for the trains, or go to the huge level of work required to building the proper train network, because I want it placed properly and I don't want to build another temporary train network. So I shall decide in what order these agendas are going to be. What's the word? Yeah, completely lost words. The order in which these objectives are going to be focused on. I think we're going to shoehorn coal in first, then build up the resources to build our first proper front wall for the southwest, as there's a couple of patches down there we can include. But we shall see. There's probably going to be an episode where it's a full 20 minutes of just biter slaying, which should be quite interesting. Or I'm thinking half an episode at 6 times speed, something really silly. But I don't know what that's going to look like until I try it. But that's going to be all we have time for this episode. I do hope you have enjoyed. If you have any kind of advice or criticism, please do not hesitate to let me know in the comments. I welcome any kind of critique or advice. It'd be much welcome. But I do hope you are enjoying. Please come join me in the next episode. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully see you in the next video. Bye bye.